All right, today we're diving into something truly fascinating, India's sacred groves. We're going to explore this amazing tradition that has protected some of the country's most precious forests for thousands of years. And get this, without a single fence or park ranger in sight.
So let's just think about this for a second. Imagine you're walking into a patch of ancient forest that just feels different. It's way more than just trees. It's a sanctuary. But there are no fences, no signs, no guards. Instead, it's protected by something much older, much deeper, faith. So what are these places? Well, these are India's sacred groves.
Okay, so to really get what makes them so important, we've got to break it down. Let's define what actually makes a forest a sacred grove. And we're talking about a tradition that goes back for millennia.
At its heart, a sacred grove is basically a piece of the natural world that's been set aside for the divine. It could be a tiny cluster of trees or a huge forest stretching for acres, but the key thing is it's dedicated to local deities. And the protection doesn't come from some government law, it comes from faith, from community rituals passed down from generation to generation.
But here's where it gets really, really interesting. There isn't some single rule book for all these groves. Nope. The level of sanctity, what you can and can't do in there, changes dramatically depending on the community.
And this is a perfect example of that diversity. For the Garo and Khasi tribes in the northeast, their groves are completely off-limits. It's a total look but don't touch situation, not a single leaf or twig. But then you go to the Gonds tribes in central India, and their rules are different. The living trees are absolutely sacred. You can't cut them. But gathering fallen branches or dead wood, that's totally fine. It's a fantastic look at how these belief systems are living, breathing things that adapt to the place and the people.
So because of this incredible community-led protection, these groves are doing double duty. They're way more than just religious spots. They actually play two hugely important roles. They're like an ark for nature, and at the same time, they're the very heart of the local culture.
From a scientific point of view, these places are priceless. I mean, think of them as these miniature biodiversity hotspots. Nature's arks, for real. They are often the last safe haven for rare plants and animals you just can't find anywhere else. They act like a living library or a gene bank for medicinal plants. And because they're often located near springs, they're critical for the local water supply. They help recharge the groundwater and stop soil from eroding away.
And then there's the cultural side, which is just as powerful. These groves are one of the oldest forms of community conservation in the entire world. This isn't some top-down government program. This is stewardship that grew out of a deep, spiritual connection to the land. It's woven right into the identity of the community.
Now you might be thinking, this is just a thing that happens in a couple of isolated places. Not at all. This idea of the sacred grove is found all over the Indian subcontinent. It's one concept, but it goes by a ton of different names. Seriously, it doesn't matter if you're up in the Himalayas or down on the tropical coasts of the south, you'll find these protected little pockets of nature. They are a fundamental, if often overlooked, piece of India's incredible landscape. And this table really just drives the point home. Look at this. In Kerala, they're known as Kavu. Pop over to Karnataka, and they're called Devara Kadu. In the dry lands of Rajasthan, they're Orans. Each name carries its own unique stories, its own deities, its own traditions. It just shows how deeply this idea is rooted in so many different cultures across the country.
But as is the case with so many ancient traditions, this one is fragile. Today, these beautiful sacred groves are facing a whole wave of modern pressures that are threatening their very existence.
So what's going wrong? Well, first, the traditional beliefs that were the bedrock of all this protection are starting to fade. They're often just dismissed as superstition. Second, you've got unchecked urbanization. Roads, dams, cities just expanding and literally eating away at these groves. Third is a really interesting cultural shift, where the original simple nature worship is replaced by more formal temples. Once a building goes up, the focus can shift away from protecting the whole forest, and the grove itself starts to get neglected. And finally, you have straight-up ecological threats, like invasive weeds that come in and just choke out all the native plants.
So this all leads us to the big question, right? Faced with all these modern challenges, how in the world can we protect this sacred legacy? Can this ancient wisdom actually survive?
Well, there are strategies being put in place. You've got government policies, like banning the sale of anything taken from the groves. You have conservationists on the ground making lists and maps of these sites to figure out which ones need help most urgently. Even simple things, like blocking vehicle access, can make a huge difference. But in the end, the most important strategy of all is empowering the local communities themselves, helping them revive and maintain the very traditions that protected these places for centuries.
So, when you boil it all down, here's the crucial point. The future of these remarkable places depends on our ability to build a bridge. It's a bridge between the ancient wisdom of community belief and the scientific knowledge of modern conservation. Because you know what? One without the other just might not be enough.
And that leaves us with one last big thought to chew on. As we face a massive global environmental crisis, we are all desperately looking for solutions. And maybe, just maybe, one of the most powerful models has been right here all along, hidden in plain sight, protected not by laws, but by pure faith. So you have to ask, can this ancient wisdom actually help us find a path forward?